After failing to sign Morgan Gibbs-White from Nottingham Forest, and after failing to sign 𝙎𝙬𝙬𝘼𝙎𝘖 from Crystal Palace, Tottenham Hotspur have signed Xavi Simons from RB Leipzig for 60 million euros, with a contract until 2030 with a 2-year option. And I've got a lot of things to say on it. Overall, I think this is a great transfer. And low key, listen, people might go and call, oh, Junior, you're salty. Oh, it's just because of, you guys can get Eze, so on and so forth. I don't think it's crazy to say that signing Xavi Simons is a better signing than getting 𝙎𝙬𝙬𝘖𝙎𝙬. He's younger than him. I think you could argue, potentially more talented than him. At least it's not crazy to go and say. He fits what you need. He can play across the front line. He can play the midfield. He can play on the wing. He's a great addition to the squad, and he's a player you needed. So he ticks all those boxes, and you signed him for roughly nowadays what you see by wingers going on for what's market value. And so I think overall, it's a great transfer. He's going to get Premier League football. He's going to get Champions League football from the Xavi Simons side. I think it's also a great signing. However, the thing that I really wanted to go and to talk about is Xavi Simons, the player, and sort of go on a case of his career, because obviously, as you guys know, I'm a PSG fan, but I'm also a Spurs fan. So this touches me on both sides. Xavi Simons is a player I feel like I know really well. I know the saga. I know everything that's happened. And it's weird in the sense that I think in isolation, you'd think moving from RB Leipzig to Spurs, that's a step up. It's a great move. Like, what's the issue there? However, it's when you know what's happened with Xavi Simons, everything where he's been in the past, so on and so forth, it kind of goes and it's a reminder that, yeah, football, sometimes it's just about being at the right place at the right time, and it's making the correct decisions at the correct time. Because for sort of a brief recapitulation of Xavi Simons' career, he started off at La Masia. He played through the youth ranks, was extremely popular then, was massive on Instagram, so on and so forth, was, destined to be the new Iniesta, the new Xavi, the new this, the new that. Absolutely excellent there. Then he, for a multitude of reasons, wanted more money, so on and so forth, moved to PSG's academy, signed for PSG, played with their academy, was absolutely excellent at the academy, the under-19, so on and so forth. Got a couple of minutes for the first team, but ultimately, because he didn't have any guarantees of playing time, he left PSG initially on a loan to PSV, and this was, understandable. This was during the Eminem era, Messi, Neymar, Suarez. He was not going to go and get starting minutes. He then obviously I went to PSV, had an absolutely amazing season that year. And what PSG did, they bought him back because they had they let him go on a transfer fee, but they had a buyback clause within like a year or two. They exercised that right, brought him back to the club, only to send him immediate back on loan to RB Leipzig. And that first year at RB Leipzig, he had an absolutely amazing season. Absolutely amazing season. Just completely tore things up new. Was absolutely excellent. This was 2023, 2024, went to the World Cup, all of these things. And then ultimately, this would have been Lucho's second year. So he was coming back to PSG, had the option to come back. And this was, because I remember specifically, this was during the Euros. There was discussions on contracts. Initially, he said he wanted to, have everything resolved before he went out to the Euros. Then it was, okay, we'll resolve it sometime during the Euros. Then it was, okay, well, let's focus on all this after the Euros. Only for, in the end, him to go back out on loan once again to RB Leipzig and basically say that he wants guaranteed playing time at PSG. He wants to be a guaranteed starter at the club. And ultimately, that's where the negotiations stalled. And that Luis Enrique wasn't going to go and making him guarantee that he was going to be a guaranteed starter for PSG week in, week out. That for him, for Luis Enrique, you have to earn your spot regardless of what your name is, whether you spend Dembele, Barcola, 𝙀𝙬𝙖𝙞𝑻𝙀, who came in that summer, Kvara, who came on later on, whoever you were, you had to gain your spot in the starting 11. And Xavi Simons, you could argue to a certain degree, understandably so, because of the fact of the lack of game time under, Galtier, under Pochettino, wanted some guarantees that he was going to be able to start. And so he decided to go back to Leipzig, and eventually in, January and whatnot, PSG went and sold him to Leipzig for, I think it was 70 mil, something like that. So a whole lot of money. Now, the thing that is really unfortunate, though, is that in that summer, in 2023, 2024, this was the summer where Mbappe left. This was the summer where we no longer had that left winger. So there was a prime spot for Xavi Simons there. He can play through the left, he can play through the middle, do all these things. He was formed at the club, spoke French, had, people in the dressing room. He knew all these things. He was meant to be the man to come. Decided, no, I wanted, because again, it's understandable why he didn't want to come. But again, for all those reasons, whatever it was, decided to go, no, I want to be a guaranteed start. I want to be the main man and guaranteed. So I want to stay at Leipzig. At Leipzig last year, I think it's fair to say they had an absolutely disastrous season. Completely fell outside of the top 24 in the Champions League, had one of the worst records, was poor in the Bundesliga, didn't even qualify for anything in Europe, were absolutely shocking everywhere and whatnot. And the worst bit for him, though, is the fact that the exact position that he was meant to have, PSG went out and spent what? 50 million plus add-ons for 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖. 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖 now, who you could argue is almost a guaranteed start for PSG. 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖, who scored 2 goals and got an assist, got 3J in a Champions League final. 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖, who is the strong favorite for the Golden Boy. 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖, who was named in the top 30 for the Ballon d'Or. 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖 could have been, and arguably should have been, Xavi Simons at PSG. What 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖 is at PSG right now, that should have been Xavi Simons, if he decided to come inside the club. And that's where I go and say that a lot of times in football, it's just about making the correct decisions at the correct time. Because now, obviously, when you look, again, as I go and say, going from Leipzig and to Spurs, normally in isolation is a great move. But seeing where Xavi Simons came from, it's a bit unfortunate. It's a bit bittersweet, I would go and say. And that's why I say, again, I'm a Spurs fan. I'm going to love him. I think he's going to be excellent. Speaking of which, it's going to be nice and interesting, especially that we're going to have Xavi Simons coming back to the Parc des Princes to face Spurs in the Champions League. But I just think it's extremely interesting to go and see that everything 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖 is now, that could have been Xavi Simons. This whole 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖 versus 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖, it could have been Xavi Simons versus 𝙎𝙬𝘼𝘖. But because of ego, because of, wanting to be a bit too greedy and whatnot, one is playing at PSG, winning their first Champions League, being one of the top players in the world, best players in the world. And the other is, once again, a great club, Spurs. I love Spurs and whatnot. But right now, it's not at the level of a PSG. But who knows? Again, football is it's a long game. Things can move really quickly. Spurs can go and go on a great run and absolutely tear things apart. And then Xavi Simons is right back into those conversations. We never know. But yeah, I think it's a good transfer from Spurs. I think it's a good deal of business. For me, it's a great transfer in isolation. For Spurs, you're getting a player who fits your profile, is young, so you got him for the future as well, compared to an Eze who, he's not old by any means. I think he's 27. But he's not a young spring chicken anymore. He can play through the left, can play in the midfield, can play across the attack, can play as a false 9. Speaks English, all these things. I think it's going to be a great transfer. I think under Thomas Frank, I think he's going to be able to do a lot of good things. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he took the number 7. So he's going to be the up and coming, Son replacement, so to be. But I'd be curious to know what your opinion is on this transfer. And if you guys want me to cover other transfer news, so on and so forth, I'd be more than happy to do so. But anyways, guys, catch you guys later. And remember, stay safe, stay kind, and stay blessed. Godspeed.